welcome to Campaign Terrain. This is week 2 of our Hovel house build. This is what we're going for in the end. Chimney stacks, all of the decor on it, nice color, wood trim, cute little house. This is how far we were going to get in this week. If you remember last week, we left off before this was painted. So we're going to go ahead and get this painted up in this video, and including the chimney, as well as the walls, and a bit of touch up on the roof. Now I realized I made a mistake by attaching the chimney first. So I'm going to go ahead and make a second one or I have made a second one, and I'll show you that in a video, where we're going to do it separately, and between now and next week I will have attached the chimney so that we can put the trim on. So these two are essentially identical, only this one's done in a better way than this. You'll see that in the video, so stick with us and I'll see you in just a minute. Thanks for coming to Campaign Terrain. Last week we were working toward having this finalized cottage, cabin, been calling it a hovel house. This is the finished one. That's my prototype. This is the one we were working on last week, and I noticed I made a mistake on it, so I'm going to cover out how to paint this one. Then I'm going to talk about how to paint the one that I didn't mess up. This is a different type of prototype, but I'll cover both of them. So I'll cover the messed up one, just in case you did it like I did last week, and the new one, which is an easier way. So we've got some basic materials and tools here to work with. I've got paints that I'm going to use for the different colors. Now this one's going to be a different color than this one. I'm not going for the same yellow, I'm going for a sort of russet red. So I'm going to use this one here, which is the raw sienna. And then I'll be covering the roofs later and how to get the yellow for this house if you wanted to do it that color. When I get done, I'm going to have 5 different colors, 4 houses of each color. Now these are our little chimneys we worked on last week. We're not even touching these this week. Now you'll notice I did put a few more coats of paint on it, like I discussed at the end of the video last week, but for now we're just setting these off to the side. At the end of the video, we're going to talk about the woodwork for next week's video, and I'm going to talk about how we can prepare it a little bit ahead of time, because it's going to get a stain on it. So that's what all this woodwork and all these materials are for. So I'll talk about them near the end of the video. In the meantime, all we're going to need really is some dry brushes. So let me get to it, make the jump here, and then we'll get right into painting the messed up house, and then we'll paint the good house, and then we'll talk about the wood and be good for next week. Here's the one that I did last week that I said I messed up. I should not have attached the chimney yet, so we're going to have to paint it while it's on the house. So I've gone ahead and masked around it, and I've created a little mask piece of cardboard here to protect the walls. So we're going to paint the chimney first, and then I'll move to the walls. To paint the chimneys, we're going to use a sponge. You always want to damp these first, so I'm just going to dip that in my water, make sure that's nice and damp. Squeeze it out a little, you don't want it just dripping. Then I'm going to use tan for that, and I'm only going to do, I'm going to try to only get it on the surface, not down into what would be the mortar cracks. I'm going to try to leave those the dark brown. So bit of tan, that's more than I need, but you kind of got to spread it out to get it onto the sponge. The sponge pretty well saturated here. So we're going to one side. Doesn't really matter since we're not wanting a solid texture anyway, we're wanting it sort of mottled. So this is going to work perfectly. Alright, we're going to start here on this edge. I'm keeping this piece tucked up under here against this so it blocks the wall. And just going along the bricks, trying to get only the surface of them. Try to get under that overhang as well as possible. Then on top of the roof, still working on the side here. Alright, we're going to all the way up the front, or the main outer face. It's actually the side of the house. And flip my little piece of masking cardboard around and do the other side. Same way. As tight as we can get it in there, which unfortunately is not as tight as I would like, but like I said, I messed this one up, so we're just trying to make do with this one. But this is going to give you the overall technique, and you'll recognize this again in just a minute when I do it on the other one, only that one's not attached to the house yet. So want to make sure to get this inside piece, the piece that faces the roof as well. And that's it. The chimney is done. Alright, let's move to the walls. Masking piece, flip that around again. Now on the walls I'm going to use a brush. So regular brush, And like I said, I'm going to use that raw sienna because I want a sort of rust color on this one. And that should be enough to do pretty much the entire house. Now I do want to wet this brush a little. I do want the paint to sort of flow. It'll thicken up a little. We're not getting it super wet, just a little bit. And then I'm putting this straight on. This is not getting diluted down. This is not getting mixed with any other colors. And I want as close as I can get to 100% coverage. Now that means right here, I need to move some of this masking tape out of the way. However, that's not really going to matter. We will be putting a wood fascia board over this in video 3. So if we can't get all the way right up under the corner, that's not going to matter that much because we will be covering that up or pretty much hiding it in the 3rd video. Now this looks pretty bright, pretty rusty right now, but it will mute down once it dries. The colors generally get a little darker as they dry. Alright, now as you can see, we didn't get all the way up in there, but on the chimney, like I said, I'm not worried that much about it. I've got to make 20 of these houses, and this is the only one I've messed up, so I'm not that worried about it. But you can get up in there with that same beige color and hit up those bricks with a smaller brush if you'd like. I'm just not going to take the time and effort to do it. So I'm going to go the rest of the way around this house, and then I'll come back and show it to you, and then we'll start on the non-messed up house. So I'll be right back. Here's that second prototype house, the one that I did not mess up on. Let me show you what I've done to it to get it ready. I went ahead and cut out the section for the chimney, and I've gone ahead and painted it on that inside just in case it shows later on. I don't want the white foam to show, so I just went ahead and browned that up. So I'm going to paint this chimney and this house just like I did the one in the last video. So it's going to get this sort of tan color on their beige color on the chimney and the russet color all over the body of the house. So let's jump right into that. Again, sponge, make sure it's damp. I'm going to use the same color. This is Beachcomber Beige by Apple Barrel. Get that good and saturated there. Again, I've got a spot that doesn't need to get painted, just like I had on the original one from last week. So you don't want to get them all in one direction just in case it develops a pattern. And we just want to get the tops. We don't really want to get the grout lines, but we are giving it a wash later, so that will be more pronounced. That's going to be in the 4th video. So let's go ahead and get the sides done here. Make sure to get the edges. I'm going to finish this up and then I'll be right back to show you the house. With the house, that amount I said earlier was probably just about enough to do the house. It was, so I've only got a little bit left. So once again, this is the Folk Art Raw Sienna. Get there where you can see it. Alright. This is a little thick, so I'm definitely going to want a damp brush for this. And we're just going to coat all of the body of the house with this. We want to get up under the eaves and overhangs a little, but you don't have to get up onto the underneath. That can stay the color brown that it is, or you can paint it if you want to, either way. And we're just going to go ahead and cover all of that in that color. Let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to do the roof, and try not to touch the wet paint that you just had your fingers on. Let me show you on the messed up house so that I'm not hitting wet paint. This, I just want a very, very, very dry brush of gray. On this one, I'm using Deco Arts. Technically, this is ceramic paint, but it works really well for this, so I'm going to go ahead and keep using it. This is about the color it comes out to. I don't actually see what color it says on here. Oh, it's just gray. For these, I use these little makeup brushes. It doesn't matter which kind you use. The different bristles work different for different textures. I find that this wider one only really works when I'm doing large swaths of landscape and things like that, so I'm not going to use that big one. But this one with the sort of rounded, I don't know what to call this shape, it's flat this way and rounded off this way, sort of like the tip of a feather. This one is pretty flat, but it's less rounded at the bottom, so it's more of a stippling brush. I'm not going to use that one today. I'm going to use this one for my dry brush. So a dry brush is literally that. You want a dry brush. You take the dry bristles, barely get any paint on it, but you do want it in there, so you want to get some paint in there, but then you want to wipe off as much as possible. See that that's still painting too much. You can test it on your skin, or if you're wearing a glove, you can test it there. As you can see, that's barely putting out any paint at all. And then I'm going to go with the grain, because I don't want it to look like I'm connecting from one shingle to the other. So I'm going to go up and down with the grain. As you can see, that's putting just the slightest bit of gray on there, just enough to age the look of the shingle, so they're not just a bright, vibrant brown. So that one's unpainted. That one is dry brushed, and you can see the difference between the two right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish dry brushing all of the parts of this roof, and then I'll be back to tell you about next week. The wood that we're going to be putting on next week needs to have a bit of a stain on it. We don't want it to look bare like this. We want it to have this sort of coloration to it. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that right now. It's going to come out looking like this when we're done. As you can see, this wood's been darkened up a little, aged a bit. I've also created some windows similar to in my door video. This door is one of the ones that I did in my door video. I also have a back door style that is a little bit different. So you'll see me, it's essentially the same thing, but with these sticks on, with the flat sticks on the side of the door rather than the wider square dowels. So we're going to be staining the wood for the windows and the doors for next week. To do that, we want to start with the skinny sticks. These are going to be all our eaves and overhangs and shutters for our windows. Then we also have the mini wood sticks. These are essentially the matchsticks, and these are for the frames to the window. They can also be used for the stiles for the door as well as the door handle, just like I said in my door video. So we're going to stain these two doors and all of this wood, and we'll get it ready for next week. Now to do that, I have a spritzer bottle. This spritzer actually came on top of my ink bottle. I swapped out the lids. This is walnut ink by Tsukineko, and this is just an antique ink solution. This is just a type of ink. I believe this is an alcohol ink. I found that it works really well for staining wood. So it comes out really, really dark, and it'll seep in just as dark. You don't want it that dark. So to thin it out, I only put a little bit in here and fill the rest of this. For lots of my washes and stains, I use floor finishings. It does not have to be this kind, but this one has shine, protect, refresh, all of those sorts of things. It's got the chemicals in it that I like. It works really well for this. It can be painted over later if you need to, etc. It does not create a glossy, plasticky surface. It just gives a nice coating to a protectant to the wood. And I only use this particular mix on wood. So let me show you how easy this is. Take the spritzer, and you don't necessarily have to get the entire thing. It will spray over. And that will give you a sort of mottled finish, so it's going to look like it's already been aged. So that's good for one side. Now the matchsticks I'm going to have to move 4 times, so we're not going to show you that on video. For the doors, we don't need to do the backs. The sides have pretty much been hit by the spray already, but I'll make sure that I get those, so I'm just going to turn those around so that I'm hitting them from the opposite angle. And then on the skinny sticks, the coffee stirrer type sticks, I'm just going to flip those over to where the bright side is up and then hit them again. And that's it. We're going to be done with what we're doing for this week 2. In week 3 we'll be attaching all of these, and then in week 4 we will be creating a platform for the house to sit on that's got some landscaping and that sort of thing on it. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and hit these up, and then we will see you next week. I will be back in just a second to give you a wrap up, show you what the houses are going to look like one more time. If you want to stick around for that, great. If not, please remember to check us out on social media. Hit like, subscribe, and make sure to share us with your friends. We'd really appreciate that. And that's about it for this week. There'll just be a wrap up in just a few seconds. I'll see you then. Well, I hope you enjoyed the... Hold on. Being buried in houses. As I said, I'm making 20 more of these, so with the 3 prototypes, it's going to be 23 of them total. So I hope you've been enjoying this build. As you can see, it's a bit of a project when you build a bunch at once, but if you're only building one, it should be smooth sailing. This is that prototype we worked on today. This is the original prototype for the main house. As you can see, I've got a bunch of chimney caps going on, got a bunch of chimneys about to go, got houses already textured. Somewhere else I've already got roofs that have already been shingled. So moving right along. Again, in episode 3, we're going to show you how to put on all of this wood trim that we just stained today. I hope you've been enjoying this build, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for coming to Campaign Terrain. I love you. See you next time.